um, even when people talk to customers, they often also look for validation. They maybe have a new product idea, they have a mock-up, they want to show it to customers and get their reaction. Would you buy this? Do you like this? Would you use this? These are all hypothetical questions, to be honest, and they don't lead to anything because customers cannot predict what they're gonna do. They don't know if they're gonna like it. They don't know if they're gonna buy it. Maybe at the moment where you are asking them, they like it and they said, yes, absolutely. But in reality, that's a totally different story.
Welcome to Table Stakes. I'm Michelle Stevens, course director at CXM Academy, and today I would love to talk about something that is very close to my heart, the jobs to be done methodology. Your customer didn't buy your product because they wanted your product. They bought it because they're trying to achieve something. They have a job they're trying to get done. And if you don't understand that job, you don't understand your customers. So most companies are obsessed with their product. They think about features, they think about benefits, they think about how to make their product even better. But they're not thinking about the actual progress their customers is trying to make. My guest today is Eckhart Boehme. He spent years studying and applying the jobs to be done framework and helping companies to understand what their customers are really trying to accomplish. So Eckhart, welcome to Table Stakes.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks for having me as a guest.
It's my pleasure. Hey, Eckhart, can I say that you are a true expert in the field of jobs to be done?
Yeah, well, what is an expert? But I have a little bit of history with jobs to be done, and I guess there's always something to learn. But 10 years ago, I heard the first time about jobs to be done, was immediately intrigued because I felt it helps to better understand, as you said in the lead-in, better understand what customers want.
Yeah, I think you are being way too modest, actually. I think you are truly an expert. Whenever I think of jobs to be done and leading thinking in that, you are one of the people that pops into my mind and go like, what would Eckhart say about this? How would he solve that? So I'm really happy that you are on the show and willing to share your knowledge and your experience.
Thank you.
But let's start with the fundamental question, because there is a lot of ambiguity, uncertainty, and it's very unclear to some people. What is jobs to be done actually, and why should I care about it, basically?
Yeah, I think you did a very good explanation. A job to be done is something that a person wants to accomplish, either in a life setting or in a business setting. It's I like to think of it as a purpose. Why is someone drilling a hole into the wall? Why is someone looking for a new place for an elderly loved one? So it really helps you better understand what people actually want to accomplish, which does not automatically shine through if you look at what product they bought. If you don't mind, I have a little anecdote that I can tell you about from one of my
Nice.
research projects. So some years ago, I researched people who were looking for a new place for an elderly loved one, was a parent or in-law. And throughout the interviews, we found out that it was not about finding a new place for the elderly loved one. It was actually about creating a last phase in life in dignity for the person. So
Yeah.
this job to be done of the relative was much larger than just finding a new place to live. So when we found out this fact, it really helped us better think about the solution space, because then you have a wider picture. But there are certain things you need to do in order to arrive at that kind of job to be done at the highest level.
Yeah, I love that example. It really demonstrates that there are multiple layers in jobs to be done in the technique. Yeah, the easiest one to find out is that, yeah, well, I need a place for my mother or father or relative to spend their old days in. That's a functional one, right? And that is something that is pretty obvious from the get-go. And also think that a lot of businesses are pretty good at finding out what the functional job to be done is if they already use jobs to be done. But there is another layer in that too, actually, and that is the emotional and the social component that also goes into the model. And I think your example really exemplifies that really well. Yeah. So it's not just about finding place for my dad, but it's actually where can I make sure that they will treat him correctly? They will treat him fairly, and it is a good place for the last phase of my parent, for instance. Yeah. So
Yeah,
there's multiple layers in there.
exactly. And the other question to answer the second part of the question, why should I care? I think any person in business should care about jobs to be done because it provides you a lens to look at human needs like no other methodology that, as far as I know. So it creates that clarity. What should I really focus on? And when you have a portfolio of possible jobs to be done, it also helps you to assess what jobs to be done. We call it apply for, sorry. Which one should I take on?
Yeah.
When I did a project with Fraport, the operator of the Frankfurt Airport, we had like a job list of 75 possible jobs they could apply for. So they asked me, Eckhart, please help us to select the right jobs that are the right ones for the customer and for us as the operator of the airport. So, and without jobs to be done, I think it would be actually difficult when you just talk about needs, because needs don't have that outcome quality, but the job to be done has an outcome quality. So it provides that ability to focus on that quality, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I fly through Frankfurt on a regular basis, so every time I'll pass there, I will think of you now. Uh, but
Very good.
actually, yeah, it is actually a complete different way of thinking about customers, right? So instead of thinking about who they are, you're thinking about what they're trying to do on a functional, social, and emotional phase. But which means there's a fundamental mistake most companies make when they try to understand their customer, right?
Mm, Actually, I think there are a lot of traps that someone can tap into. Uh, what I still see is that many organizations, they shy away from speaking to customers. So they kind of take the low road or the easy road. They look at numbers, they look at transactions, they like to send out surveys, but not talking to customers. That's scary. It's like it could be embarrassing. So, um, but that is one that I think is not spending the effort. I mean, we're dealing with people. We want to serve people. Why don't we talk to people? So it's a very fundamental thing, but still, many companies don't do it. Another one would be, even when you do interviews, what I've seen is that many people are just too narrowly focused when interviewing. They look at the experience, the customer experience only. They don't look at the way the customer took to arrive at that solution, and then at their experience with it. So they're not looking at progress usually. But you need to understand the whole progress process, so to speak, to really understand what struggles people have to arrive at that solution, and maybe what better ways there could be, and what ways there could be to support the customer along that journey. And the
Yeah.
third one, I would say, um, even when people talk to customers, they often also look for validation. They maybe have a new product idea, they have a mock-up, They show it to customers. They want to show it to customers and get their reaction. Would you buy this? Do you like this? Would you use this? These are all hypothetical questions, to be honest, and they don't lead to anything because customers cannot predict what they're gonna do. They don't know if they're gonna like it. They don't know if they're gonna buy it. Maybe at the moment where you are asking them, they like it and they said, yes, absolutely. But in reality, that's a totally different story. So what we do in interviews is always to walk back, so to speak, from the current state to the past and look at that process. So trying to get evidence about the customer. Maybe the customer doesn't remember everything correctly, but that's okay. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it counts what's in their awareness, but at least it's what they think is happened, and that is really good information to work with.
While you were going through your points, a story popped into my head. It's about the original work by Clayton Christensen for McDonald's. And probably you know the story as well. It's when they came up with the jobs to be done methodology for McDonald's. McDonald's was actually looking at all the data. They had so much data. They knew the even to the zip code what people were using and what not, and demographics and everything. But what they could find out was, how do we sell more milkshakes, right? And so Christensen and his team did what every researcher does. They sat in their McDonald's and just observed people. What are they doing and why are they doing it? And ask questions. And I love it when you say, yeah, we should talk to customers more often, because that's the only way that you're going to find out what's driving them. Well, why do you buy your milkshake? And that's the only reason that they found out that people were not buying a milkshake necessarily as a treat to themselves, but actually they were buying it because they wanted a nutritious breakfast in the morning. So I was like, okay, that's not really expected. But all of a sudden they realized that, yeah, they were able to sell something more if they marketed differently, right? So more towards the convenience of having it on the go, and it will not spill like a croissant or a panini or something like that. And yeah, so
yeah,
that
right.
I mean that is the cool thing about real research.
Yeah, I did a couple of years ago. I think I compared what my client, which was a manufacturer of coffee machines, what they thought at the beginning of the project about customers, and after. So it was like before after comparison, and it turned out up to 90% of constraints, for example, that's just one data point, of constraints were not known to the organization, although they have been in business for decades in business, but they didn't know their customers. Up to 90% of the elements were not known to them. And it's really surprising, because if they don't talk to customers, then they always look through the product lens at the customer.
Yeah.
But after the project, they got a totally different picture. And that's always what I pull out, is when people say, we know our customers. Well, okay, let's get very specific. What exactly do you know about your customers? And when you do the research, you find out you didn't know that much about them.
No. Yeah, I think that a lot of organizations are just asking the wrong questions. They're talking about demographics and preferences instead of asking about progress, which is where your customer progress design methodology comes in, right? So can you walk us through that?
Yeah, I developed a methodology that I called customer progress design, after the invention of the wheel of progress, actually, which is like a canvas, or some people call it like a board that you could put on a wall to capture qualitative information, like a customer interview. And there are 12, as I said, 12 elements on it. And then you document it on a wheel of progress. And after we had like 10 interviews, we said, okay, somehow we need to find a way to consolidate the data to prioritize customer jobs and then put it into the action. Because that's also something that we have discovered is, you do all the research, but then you don't have a clear methodology, no clear plan how to use the data. So in the process that I developed ends with putting the data, the consolidated data, into action. And in our model, we look at 4 distinct phases customers go throughout their customer journey. And in each and every phase, customers have different questions, challenges, needs. And in each of these 4 phases, we can do something different for the customer to help them get to the next phase and ultimately get through the entire customer journey.
Yeah.
There was a revelation. It's like, oh yeah, my goodness, we can help customers go through the journey. The more customers we help getting started, helping them figure out what they want, what they need, helping them select the product, then realizing the actual core jobs to be done, the more customers we will have and maybe retain if we think then also in cycles and understand once the customer is through that cycle, there will be a next one eventually. When my car gets very old and it breaks, then eventually I will have a need for new transportation, right? So it totally, this whole cycle thinking and thinking in terms of a wheel as a metaphor helped us to understand customer progress, and customer progress design became the mission for organizations, companies, non-profits, whatsoever. The mission to help customers get through the customer journey and arrive at a better state.
Yeah. So the methodology is about understanding the customer's context and the forces at play when they're considering a change, right? But I know a lot of people who try to apply this and they get stuck, right? So what's the most common mistake people make when conducting their first job to be done interview?
Yeah, I mean, I made a lot of mistakes, I guess, when I did this, when I started off with this. Although in my old job, I did lots of focus groups and other interviews and so on. But with jobs to be done, I think one of the most popular mistakes is having no plan. It's just starting talking with people about anything, and it's better to have a plan. It's better, and I'm not talking about like a word by word or question by question script, but really focusing on that progress, on that customer journey from the first thought, I want to change something, to when after people have started to use the product and had their first experience. Also, many people focus just on experience with the product, but that's only one side of the medal. The other medal is experience during the customer journey. So how easy or difficult was it to make up your mind? How easy or difficult was it to choose a product? So that's also a customer experience, right? And so that should be also a focus. So having a good plan, the wheel of progress, for example, I use as my questionnaire, because it's not only for documentation, but we know what we are looking for. And when I document the interview, and I can do it right now during the interview, I can take notes and ask questions at the same time because I'm trained and experienced. But in general, even when you have a team of people doing the interview, some people take notes, and then you can see, okay, there are maybe some white spaces that I should go. Maybe I forgot to talk about customer habits. I forgot to talk about the constraints people are under. So that's a good plan. It's a white canvas, and that you fill out throughout the interview is good. The other one is what I'm doing right now is talking too much. In interviews, it's fun to talk, right? But it's not about you. it's about the other one. It's about the interviewee. You want to know their story. So hold back and try to be like a moderator on TV. It's like try to hold back and don't express, yeah, I like that as well, or I don't like this and my experiences. No, it's like it's about the other one. So that is also one thing I've seen. So no agreeing, disagreeing,
Yeah.
whatever the interview says is that's their version, that's their reality. I don't wonder about this. This is their world. And then, as I said at the beginning, like hypothetical questions. So
Mhm.
will you? So we don't know that. Then trying to get kind of a little bit under the skin. So not being satisfied with the answer.
Yeah.
Asking why. Why did you do this? Why did you enjoy this? Why didn't you enjoy this?
Mhm.
And then in an elegant way to go even deeper. So try to get as deep as you can. But it needs to be an elegant way. Otherwise, it's like an interrogation, and you don't
Yeah.
want to come over as someone who
No, no,
interrogates.
no, of course. I always compare it with borderline being, um, yeah, borderline annoying. Like, I really want to understand. So, what does that mean? So, what do you mean exactly? Yeah, that is, it's a good quality
Exactly.
to be very curious about people's lives. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Being genuinely curious about someone else also shows respect.
Hmm.
And that leads me to the last one is trying to build trust with that person in front of you. And once in a while, I like to have a good laugh with people. It's like when something is funny. There was this interview with someone who was hearing impaired. He had a hearing device. And I asked him what he does. And he was like 70 something, 75. And I asked him, what do you do when you go into a club in a disco? And he had to laugh because he doesn't go there. But it was like a nice idea. What do you do with your hearing aid? And you go to a disco. So yeah, and that opens up people, and they like to share. I even had one that I remember very very vividly. Is we interviewed a guy, and the next day we met him again. There was at a startup place, and he said, "Eckhart, the interview yesterday was the best thing that happened to me this year." And I said, "Why?" Because you were able to explain to me why I did what I did.
Mm.
He built a new routine and he did not know why. But through the interview, we learned why he did even that. And there was a huge revelation for him.
That's that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's really so cool. I remember there was this research. I was only partially involved into that one, but where the one of the interviewees was actually so fond of the interviewer. So we were doing research for a drink distributor. So they're producing actually champagne. And he was so fond of the researcher that every year, around just before Christmas, he sent his wish list of the things that he wanted as champagnes for the holiday season. So every year was like, "Hey, here I am again with my shopping list. Can you make sure that it ends up with the company?" it was it was really funny because every year around the same period, he's back again. That's so.
That's good.
Hey, but it's easy to ask the wrong questions or ask them in the wrong way, which means for someone who's just starting to apply this, there's probably one thing they should focus on first. So, what is that according to you? What should they focus on?
Well, first is getting over the hump and do it. Don't procrastinate. Don't put it out and say, okay, next summer I will start interviewing. Do it. I mean, it's like once you have done your first interviews, like, yeah, it's even fun. It's fun. It's if you like people, if you like talk to people, it's fun. So of course you can take some interview training or kind of using someone as a coach. Of course, that's also possible. Then I would always, of course, record the session if possible, because taking notes and asking questions and listening, thinking about the next question, taking note, that is very demanding. So recording with permission of the interviewee, of course, is a good best practice. Then trying to focus on the story, getting the story, uh, and not just waiting sometimes for the interview to tell you everything. You need to drill down. You need to, if you wonder about something, ask about why. Try to get them to talk, and then just practice. The more interviews you do, the easier it gets. I've done hundreds of interviews, and I even don't need to look at my script anymore. But at the beginning, it would be good to have either the wheel of progress or maybe a basic script, how to get the best out of
Yeah,
the customer story.
yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, that is a question I have. I know that there is this company who does qualitative interviews through AI. So what they do is they let research subjects, so people, they let them do their story with an AI, and the AI asks follow-up questions and everything. What they saw, and this is just preliminary data, this needs to be confirmed all over, but what they show right now is that the interviews take longer than with in-person interviews, because these people are sharing more intimate details. And I think it also ties back to the trust level that you have, that there is less judgment in their responses, probably. What's your take on this? Is this something that is interesting for the future? Is AI actually interesting for the future in jobs to be done? How do you look at that?
Yeah, that's a great question. To be honest, I haven't used those services yet. I think there are many ways to look at this. The pure technical way is it may be really a nice tool to do interviews, because these interviews become more natural.
Mhm.
It doesn't sound like you're talking to a machine. So I can imagine that people get a certain trust level to share information with that agent. On the other hand, I think it's still, we're in a people-to-people business, and if I would use this new technology, I wouldn't use it exclusively.
Mm.
I would, as a human being, and being genuinely interested in my customers, I think there's no way to replace it 100% with technology. So it's probably to have a good mix, maybe doing the first 10 interviews by yourself or your
Mhm.
team, and then doing another 30 interviews by using AI technology. I think that could be a good way.
Yeah. We won't know until we try it and figure it out, right? I think that is the inflection point where we are in time. There are still a lot of unknowns right now. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah. So yeah. Well, Eckhart, really, this has been really very insightful. So basically, what you've been saying is that we have to stop thinking about the product and think about the job. And jobs to be done is a great way to do that, basically. So Eckhart, thank you for being here and for showing us that understanding your customer starts with understanding what they're trying to accomplish, and get out of the door and do some interviews. Thank you so much,
Yes.
Eckhart.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
You're quite welcome. And thanks to all of you watching and listening. Your customers don't hire your product, they hire you to make progress. So this was Table Stakes. Until next time, here or in one of our courses. See you around.